All right. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. We are going to jump right into it, inshallah. So first of all, thank you so much for doing this with me. My first question to you is just pretty basic. What was it that brought you to the program in the first place? Like, what made you apply to Seeking Wholeness?
I think for me, I had done a lot of work previously with therapy. I was hitting a wall where I was constantly just talk therapy, which wasn't getting me anywhere. And I kept changing therapists and I kept doing different methods. And eventually I'm like, I just need results. Like, I just need a bigger shift. I needed to see a bigger shift. And I had done a lot of like work, personal development work on a secular level, but then I hit a wall where I just felt like something was like said to me and I was like, I need an Islamic perspective. I need someone who can marry both of these things, because it just wasn't resonating with me anymore. And that's essentially when I found your program, and almost immediately just was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Like, I prayed about it. It showed up. I was like, there we go. This is what we're doing. So
I love it. One thing that I actually really, really appreciated about you, and like there's a select group of women who are like this, is that you are just so open, like, to coaching in general. You'd already worked with, I think if I remember, you'd worked with coaches in the past. You've done therapy. So like you're already very open to the experience. And I find that when women have that openness, like they're trusting, they understand that with coaching, what you put in is also what you get out. They really end up getting some of the most incredible results just as a result of that. So that's one thing I just like wanted to note, because it's an uncommon thing to come across, because coaching is still relatively new, the concept, right?
Yeah.
So you joined the program. What was the experience of actually being in the program like?
Honestly, it felt like a sisterhood that I never had. I mean, I'm one of four. I have four brothers, so I never felt safe to even discuss these things, let alone with like things that are related to trauma. So especially from a Middle Eastern perspective, like these things are just never discussed. These things are, you don't necessarily always have a safe space to talk about boundaries and being triggered by family and friends and all that. So just in a sense, like it just felt like safe to be open or not. Like there are times where I would get on the call and I'm like, I don't have it in me to even say anything, but just being on the call somehow would resolve something in me just from listening to other people say. And then there are times where I'm like, okay, no, I need to get to the bottom of this thing that has been going on or whatever has been happening that week. So it was really just purely a safe space that I felt like I could be me, no judgment, no feeling like I needed to pretend like I was hide or pretend like I was something that I was not. The other aspect of it was I had a lot of religious trauma to a certain degree where I just didn't know how that was going to happen. Like, I been called not religious before because I wasn't doing certain things or looking a certain part. And so it just, in a sense, I kind of felt like I was hesitant about whether or not I was going to be judged. But honestly, it was such a safe space where anyone and everyone was just welcomed. And it didn't matter where you were in your journey of faith. And it didn't matter what trauma you had experienced, everyone was welcomed. So that's what I really liked about it.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, you're talking a lot about kind of like the community aspect and also the co-regulation aspect, right? Which, like, people don't realize how important it is to be surrounded by women who are doing the work as well, because your nervous system responds to their nervous system. And the growth that they're having, you get to just absorb it. There's a bit of an exchange that happens there. And it's really, really powerful. And I think that's the one thing that tends to surprise. Like, if I have to think about what almost every interviewee, every one of you guys who has done like one of these interviews has said, was that it was shocking to them how powerful the group aspect was of it. What would you say about the actual coaching part? the actual like, okay, here's, this is what's going on. Okay, here's what you can do. Have you tried this? Or helping you dissect and get to the bottom of certain particular issues or traumas.
The coaching was great. I think learning the difference between integration and regulation was huge for me because it's not something that I'd ever learned to distinguish. And also like learning about my window of tolerance. And so just in a sense, like learning how to put all of it together, where there are times where it calls for integration and there are times where it calls for regulation. And that was something that I'm still trying to navigate and like learn to pick up on my, like with just alone when I don't have like the coaching. But that was a big piece of the puzzle for me, where I feel like there are times where I was reaching for, I don't want to say the wrong tool, because thankfully we have tools in our tool belt and eventually like something will work, but just gaining more skills and more tools that I can use later on has been huge. And again, some of it I've already had experience and some of it was new, but the added bonus to it was understanding how intricate everything was and when to call for what tool, essentially. But that was a big part of it, just understanding that it with such clarity of like, this is when your window of tolerance is so limited, here is what you need to focus on. You're not integrating, you're regulating and like doing, and with certain triggers, it's like waiting a few days or like just taking time to just be. And that was a big thing for me. I'm a big doer, so just learning to just be sometimes was, I'm like, what do you mean? I just have to sit with it. But having the tools to be able to navigate what I need in that current moment has been huge.
Yeah. And this is why I refer to it as a system, right? Like there are algorithms almost that you guys are learning. Like if this happens, here's what you're going to do. If this happens, here's what you're going to do. Because sometimes people give such like cut and dry advice and guidance and coaching, not realizing how complex trauma can really be. And that if you do the wrong thing at the wrong time, you can actually make things worse for you.
Yeah.
And so also like giving you guys the knowledge base, so you're empowered to say like, oh, okay, this is what my nervous system needs at this point. And these are like the tools that would work the best, or like, here's how I can break down a new trigger. I don't know where it's coming from. How do I understand what's actually happening there? I think is so important, and what's missing typically from this work when we do it. It's almost like we treat, in general, not we, the mental health field in terms of trauma treats trauma victims as if they are like almost too dumb to understand the complexities of trauma. And I felt like, no, that's something that needs to be turned on its head, because who better to understand the complexity of trauma than the person who lived the experience of it?
Yeah, that's right? For sure. I think that's what I wasn't getting with other things that I tried, where it's like constantly re-traumatizing myself by trying to figure it out. But it's like, okay,
you don't know why.
The thing happened. That's how I reacted to it. Great. Now let's move on. I can't change it. I can't change the event. I can't change any of what happened. But it's like, how do you move on from that? And talking about it was just having me go around in circles. But actually figuring out ways to integrate it was great. Also realizing that, like, yes, there are things that integrate and there's different layers to it. So as much as I felt like, oh my God, but I've done so much work, why am I still retriggered? Learning that there's just so many layers to it, and that it's okay. Like, it's not a one and done thing and you'll never be retriggered ever again. It's a continual process and journey that you're going through, and learning the tools and knowing what you're going to use now, like what you're going to use when you get triggered, has been huge.
What changed for you? And when I ask this question objectively, the people will be like, I feel lighter. Like, what did you notice in your nervous system actually change, where you were like, whoa, before and after, or just completely two different things?
I think for one, a lot of my, this is a huge one, but a lot of like my physical illnesses started to disappear.
I love how you said it so casually. A
No,
lot of my chronic illnesses that I've,
just
suffered with
started,
for several
yes.
years.
No, it's fascinating because I've come a long way already. So in a sense, I'm like, what else could, like, kind of like went in with skepticism of like, yeah, sure. Like, what else? Like, am I really gonna resolve this? But just really, truly like feeling like things are starting to get resolved. Like things are I'm not burnt out as much. I'm not I can notice when I'm dysregulated, and that's something I could do before, but I didn't know how to handle. I didn't know what to do with it. Now I feel like even when I get dysregulated, automatically I'll like do things to regulate my nervous system without even noticing that I'm doing it. So
Your
in a sense,
mind-body
kind of
connection.
it's just becoming a part of me versus going and spiraling. So, but really truly like feeling like not being scared of being dysregulated. It's no longer the scary thing of like, oh my God, how I've spent all this time regulating, like, how can I be triggered? Like, but truly just being like, okay, like I can handle whatever comes my way.
Yeah. And that's because your window of tolerance has expanded, right?
Yeah.
We don't do this work just to like, I forgot who I said this to. I don't know if it was in your group or another group, but the idea of being triggerless is the biggest bold-faced lie. How is anyone going to be triggerless in a world where we have a nervous system that's intended to be triggered? Your nervous system exists to be triggered. The issue is not that it's triggered. The issue is that when it's triggered, it stays in fight or flight or freeze for so long. So when we expand your window of tolerance, your nervous system realizes, hey, we can handle those triggers. And what you just described is your nervous system started to learn how to regulate automatically by default. And so it's no longer this overwhelming, scary thing. And that's what the healing looks like, right? In some cases, the triggers do completely disappear. Other times they don't, but the capacity for them is what changes.
Yeah. And also like learning to just have grace with myself. That was something huge where
Self-compassion.
Just being open to like, okay, cool. And I got triggered today. It's not the end of the world. And I'll pick myself back up like I always have. And I just need to be with it and sit with it for a minute or whatever, a day, whatever it is, and just being okay with it. And learning the balance between, am I sitting in it too much or am I not giving myself enough grace? Because it can go both ways. And either extreme is like harming yourself. But learning that has been huge for me. And yeah, the self-compassion has just been huge.
Yeah, I love that. SubhanAllah, there's something I was going to say about that. And then, the idea of post-traumatic growth, right? Previous to what you're describing right now, for someone who's traumatized, when something happens, a trigger occurs or a hardship happens, it's like the world just falls apart. You spiral, you don't know what to do. And when you've done the work of healing trauma, especially when you've integrated some trauma, so now like you actually did genuinely resolve certain trauma, and then you've also built space in your nervous system to deal with like issues with dysregulation, what ends up happening is you experience post-traumatic growth, right? So now your nervous system is able to take those old experiences of trauma and really like extract the wisdom from it so that it propels you forward. And so when people say like, hard times make tough men, that idea, they're referring to post-traumatic growth. But what we typically, before then, nobody recognized that also hard times can make like traumatized men.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to make sure that you end up as a strong man and not the traumatized man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it's for sure. Like, sorry, I just like realizing how much I feel like no matter what, continuously growing and realizing how every little, like, I think the most growth that I've created in this is with my communication. Like, I'd never been able to communicate so clearly with people in my life without
boundaries too.
Yeah, without being able to be understood. And it's a big trigger for me because like for the longest time, like it was like, oh, communication, like what is like that's not something you know how to do. But like now, like finally being able to communicate things and feel like, okay, if they react the way I want them to, cool. If not, cool. Like I don't, but I need to communicate my boundaries. I need to make myself heard and not expect anything from anyone, and be okay with it. That's been huge.
Got it. That's beautiful. No, that's so powerful. And it's just even like the piece that like have that inner confidence to know that you're doing things to actually protect yourself is something people really, really underestimate. Because how many people, especially people pleasers, right? How many women, how many even men struggle with being able to just say like, hey, I'm not comfortable with this, or hey, I don't want to do this, without spiraling into shame or guilt or fear, or if you're feeling like they're going to be rejected.
Yeah.
One last question for you is, what would you say to any woman who is interested in the Seeking Wholeness program? Maybe they've never tried, a coaching program like this before, and they're hesitant to join.
I think the one thing that I get asked a lot about any program that I've done is whether to do one-on-one or group coaching or group therapy or whatever. And honestly, there is so much wisdom that comes out of group coaching that I think a lot of people underestimate, especially if you're a person who hasn't done a lot of work yet.
Yeah.
Starting with group coaching, as intimidating as that can be, is such a blessing in itself. Like, you don't, like, the amount of gems that come out just from hearing other people's stories and being, whether you're able to relate or not, somehow you're able to relate it. Somehow it'll click when it needs to click. So in a sense, just go for it. Like, if it feels right, just go for it and be open to it. That would be the main thing, just to be open to it and be willing to put in the work, because it doesn't just, yes, you'll get some gems by just being there and attending the coaching calls and whatever, but being willing to put in the work and actually see how things change.
We call that being coachable. Like, this is what we're looking for. When any like coach who's who runs a program or does any coaching is looking for, like, are you coachable? We coach, but then you have to apply the coaching, because if you just sit into the default, then your nervous system's going to default to the trauma, because that's all it's known, right? It's funny, because one thing that just came to mind is, didn't you mention at some point that like your friend said that they noticed a difference and they're like, what are you doing? You seem so much happier now.
Yeah, a friend of mine noticed, well, that was the big thing, which honestly I've been working on this for, I don't know, 2019, or is it 6 years now? Of just trying to shift my mindset to just be like, my automatic for the most of my existence was like just thinking negatively about everything. And I used to walk around and go like, I'm not negative, I'm realistic. But truly understanding, and I think a part of that comes from having Iman and how that grew in this program. Just having witnessed and done things that I didn't like. Again, it's connecting the Iman with the mental health work, and both have just been helped tremendously. But suddenly, like, I'm no longer a person that goes to the automatic negative thoughts and feelings. It's not my automatic anymore. And my friend noticed it immediately as we were talking. She's like, what have you been doing? And I was like, so let me tell you. But it's fascinating to see. When she had mentioned it, I was like, oh, this is no longer my thing. Like, my perspective on life has completely shifted. Honestly, it took 6 years, and I'm like, this is never gonna be a thing. I didn't even go in with the intention of changing that. I was like, this is just a part of me. So.
It's called an unintentional outcome, right? It's like not the main thing you come with. But here's the thing a lot of people don't recognize, and I'll end with this, inshallah, is that we focus so much on like mindset shifting, mindset work. Like, that's what you always hear about on social media. That's what coaches are always, selling, is like, I'm gonna help you shift your mindset. But to shift your mindset, it's when you have trauma, your nervous system has to believe that there's a way to even make that worth it.
Make it work.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And it has to believe that there's an outcome, like there's an outside of what you experience. And until your nervous system starts experiencing healing, the mindset shift is not going to come. You're working in reverse. you're trying to put the mindset before the nervous system work, but no, your nervous system, your mindset responds to your nervous system work. And so that's why it happens so naturally. It's because you just did things in the right order. So, and that's
Yeah.
really just sets upon, like, you're not the first or the last who's ever mentioned that.
Yeah.
It's just a beautiful thing that we're able to kind of watch happen. With all of that being said, thank you so much for sharing your experience. And to any of the sisters who are watching this, inshallah, and are like, okay, I'm ready, I want to apply for the trauma group coaching program, then I invite you to go to the link in the description and apply for your discovery call. And who knows, you might end up in the next cohort. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.